Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Is it kind of wrong that it's quite nice to have a Tottenham video where we're not talking about Tottenham playing? Is that wrong? I don't know, but I kind of like it. It's. I feel like we've just spoken about Tottenham matches where it's like, but actually, there's no football to talk about, just a new signing and potentially other new signings as well. So that can only be a good thing. Well, hopefully. So the new signing, let's dive straight into it because it has just been announced before I started this video. I was holding off, thinking it's going to be announced. Let's get any little bits of nuggets of information rather than me having to go, oh, it's been announced and having to kind of react to it as well. Conor Gallagher. Conor Gallagher, a transfer that's been in the making for quite a while, if you think about how long that interest has been there from Spurs, has now arrived. Atletico Madrid, £34.7 million, which is a very good deal for the player, as we're going to discuss exactly kind of what he's all about. He takes a number 22 shirt. It's not even cold from Brennan Johnson's grip, and he has taken that. I wonder whether that will be a kind of a permanent thing or whether he'll end up swapping in the summer because, potentially maybe the number 8 shirt's available. There could be a few others that he's had in the past that might be available. Could be a temporary thing. We'll find out. But either way, he is a number 22. I think he's reportedly signed a 5.5-year deal. We don't know officially because Tottenham, as you might be aware, have started doing this thing where they don't announce contract lengths. I don't know whether it's just to help them down the line when, we get to that bit where everyone's asking about the length of a contract or options and things like that, and it saves them some hassle. I don't know. But this does seem to be a club of mystery, doesn't it, Tottenham Hotspur? It's contract lengths, injury news sometimes. Even the team news is put out in numerical order so the opposition don't know who is playing where. Because, that 1%, it's really benefited Tottenham this year, I feel, massively. That tactical mystery has been a huge key point for them. Ignore me. I'm being bitter because, quite frankly, I have to write a team news story when the team news comes out. And they've, I was saving a good 30 seconds by being able to cut and paste the team into my story. So they've ruined that. And that's why I'm just a very angry, bitter man about it. I got some quotes from you. I just watched these aren't actually from the video. They're bits from the video. But just watched his interview, which is really good. He's a good, articulate guy, speaks well. People have told me that before about him. And we'll talk about his voice in the dressing room as well. But also, I had a little look at, he's done a few messages on Instagram, one about joining Spurs and one about leaving Atletico. And that one, if you look underneath, those Atleti fans they're pretty sad to see him go. There's a lot of respect. Sometimes when players leave a club, there's a little bit of, you were rubbish anyway kind of idea. But actually, because they called him, I think his nickname over there was the English Pitbull. And there's a lot of love. There's some saying they just didn't value enough as they should and stuff like that. It's very nice. It's interesting because I've seen some Chelsea fans getting quite annoyed about it. And I feel that's interesting. I know sometimes you can have the idea of, he came through the Chelsea youth ranks and everything and was Chelsea through and through, all of that. But they got rid of him. I'd understand that if kind of almost like, I don't know, if there was some other different ending to his story there. But he was essentially forced out the door because they wanted the money because being a homegrown player, it helped in the PSR sale. So I thought it was a bit odd that he's getting any flack for it whatsoever. But then, I don't know, maybe a Tottenham player would as well. I don't know. But it doesn't matter. Kind of a bit, who cares, isn't it, really? Because that's the past. Future is Tottenham Hotspur for him. His quotes for you, some of them. I'm so happy and excited to be here, taking the next step in my career at an amazing club. I wanted to be a Spurs player and thankfully the club felt the same. It was very easy, it happened very quickly and I'm ready to get on the pitch. I know how great the fans are. I'm really happy to be a part of it here and want to create special moments and memories together. Thomas Frank said, Conor is a top midfielder. I can just mention him, top midfielder, who we have worked tirelessly to add to our squad. He's still young, so there's plenty of room for improvement. Also, his huge experience across the Premier League, La Liga, and with the England national team. Conor has captained teams, so will bring leadership, maturity, character, personality to our dressing room, while his running power, pressing ability, and eye for goal will strengthen us in a key area of the pitch. I'm excited about working with him every day, and I know the fans will love what he will bring to the team. So as I said at the top of this, very much a transfer that's been in the making for a while. The reason I say that is because Ange Postecoglou behind the scenes was very much calling for Gallagher to be signed. I think summer of 24, definitely. I feel like previously, before that as well. But either way, Spurs couldn't or wouldn't do a deal. However it transpired, obviously more difficult for Spurs and Chelsea to do deals. Doesn't really happen like that. You had Daniel Levy there and maybe background with Chelsea. I don't know. Whatever happened, deal never got done for Gallagher to go and be part of Postecoglou's team. And he would have pretty much been perfect for that Postecoglou midfield, I think. Maybe just circumstances being a little bit better. 18 months on. Atletico Madrid, of course, dealing with them rather than Chelsea. And lo and behold, he's a Tottenham player. From the sounds of it, from what I understand, it was a phone call from Thomas Frank, I think maybe on Sunday, certainly at the weekend, made the difference, really, because obviously Aston Villa were in there as well, and felt like they were going to get their man. Good phone call from Thomas Frank. It's always a good phone call, isn't it? Whenever the player is got, it's always been a good phone call. You can say that. And he convinced him that, at Tottenham, I wonder whether there had also been a case that at Spurs, he's probably going to start every single game he possibly can. Whereas maybe at Villa at the moment, right now, maybe a little bit more competition in there. Whereas at Spurs, we'll talk about it, there's definitely, in terms of the now, I think he's in levels above, certainly, in more of an all-round game than the other people in the midfield slots. And again, we're going to go through all of this, don't worry. I'm sure you're not worried. I said don't worry. Like you were sitting there going, oh, goodness, I hope he goes through this. So Postecoglou saw him as the perfect 8 within his system. And he's going to bring the exact qualities to Thomas Frank's midfield, with kind of the quality he's got and the drive as well. And the whole mentality. Every kind of match we're talking about the lack of mentality maybe from Spurs and an inability to pull themselves up kind of mentally out of situations, react to setbacks, and also just keep certain standards as basic minimum that we want them to keep. Conor Gallagher is someone that does not drop from those. This is a guy that will give you every last ounce in his body, and he will be a leader. And also, Bentancur's out for 3 months. Just had his surgery, which went successfully on his hamstring. Spurs really needed a midfielder. I said videos ago that Spurs, one of the things they were looking at was potentially a midfielder. As soon as Bentancur's injury was going to realise how serious it was, that became a priority, and they got that done. Like I said, he's a leader. Let's go through the reasons of why I think he's a good signing for Spurs. You probably will remember me being kind of for him as a potential signing when Postecoglou wanted him, and he's got so many. I think it's like 5 different areas we can kind of talk about why he should be a good benefit to this Tottenham team. He might be only 25, but he's experienced so much. He has played for 3 different Premier League clubs. He's taken on the challenge of La Liga football, which is not something many kind of Englishmen will go and do. It's kind of become a little bit more of a thing in recent times, and he has experienced that. Spent 18 months in La Liga, 23 Champions League matches, 22 games for England, played for his country at European Championships, been in the squad for a World Cup, played in the Championship as well as a youngster. I think Premier League games, I think he's played something like 136 Premier League games. And first season at Atletico, he was playing week in, week out for them. He was a real key part of their team. I'm very interested to know how much. I think he was starting to learn the basics of Spanish. It'd be interesting to see how he can communicate with the Spanish speakers at Spurs. But that could be very helpful, even just having a rudimentary knowledge. He was a big part of their team first year, but unfortunately just this year, things changed, don't they? Things changed. He kind of fell out of the constant. So he was still, I think he appeared something like 27, 28 times this season. He has been still in his Simeone's thoughts and used a lot, but he just kind of wasn't quite the key man he was. And I know there's some people kind of turning their nose up a little bit about this deal. And I would say, especially with Bentancur out as well, and this being a long-term thing, and actually a lot of people moaning about Bentancur in recent weeks as well, this is a player who will slot straight into there. And if Aston Villa and Unai Emery, who are doing really well and being praised, wanted him in their midfield, maybe he's quite good. If Diego Simeone wanted him at Atletico, maybe he's quite good. If he was the captain of Chelsea for much of, I think it was Poch's season, wasn't it, with Reece James out, probably quite good. It's like, I don't know, I kind of feel like, I don't know. I don't know whether it's the old cliche that I talk about with maybe if he was a foreign player, everyone would rave about him. I don't know. Or whether it is just a case of we kind of prefer the things we don't know too much about more than the ones we do. I don't know. And maybe someone from another league, although ironically he is coming from a foreign league, might be seen as a little bit better. And look, I know Spurs need stuff in other positions. We'll talk about that. They are still looking for stuff. From what I'm told, there's work still going on. So that's not kind of part of this. This is a brilliant deal for a player that is of a really good Premier League quality that can come in and improve your starting 11. And if you can do that, why don't you do it? Of course you do it. And I think as a natural consequence, you improve your squad as well. We've spoken about it before. Improve your starting 11, you improve your squad. So yeah, his mentality has been praised. I've got a couple of quotes from other people. So Petr Cech, the former Chelsea goalkeeper, said of him 18 months ago, he's always been working hard. He's one of the players that always cared about winning and about the club. You find that even young players can have special abilities to be a leader. Conor is one of these players. He's always worked hard. He's always cared. And he always tries his best. He's pushing and one of the captains in the making because of the way he is. There's another connection here to Tottenham, which you'll be well aware of. Actually, as I just mentioned his name anyway, Pochettino. Some more cynical out there might be suggesting, oh, the first player they've signed is Pochettino, is one of his favourites. Interesting. I still think, look, I've said it a million times. I hope Thomas Frank turns everything around and is the Tottenham manager for years to come because he's been a major success. But people have spoken about potential replacements, and Pochettino for me is a difficult one because of the amount of time he'd be involved in the whole World Cup thing, unless USA went out very early in their own hosting of the World Cup. But anyway, enough about that. We'll talk about the now. Pochettino said about him, because you might remember, well, I spoke about it earlier. They tried to sell him Chelsea, they eventually did, because of his value in the whole world of PSR. The phrase has gone out of my head. It's something true something. Or absolute something. I can't remember. It's something to do with the profit level. There's no kind of downside that you have to take away from it. But that's not important. The main thing is they were trying to sell him, and Pochettino didn't actually want to sell him at the time. And I think that was actually one of the bones of contention during his time there. And he said he kind of fought to keep him. And he said he's a player with great commitment to the team. He's always trying to compensate in every situation, offensive, defensive situations. It's priceless to have a player like him. He's in the starting 11 nearly every game and one of the captains. For me, he's the type of player that a club needs to have. He runs, he plays, he fights, he does everything to win. He's a really important player that the coaching staff want to have on the team. And I'm not comparing the two players in terms of what they do. I'm talking more maybe a mentality thing. But I do feel, and I don't know if people agree with me, that Spurs lost a little something in terms of their drive, their fight, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, maybe just mentality being the word, when Pierre-Emile Højbjerg left. I know some people talk about limitations in the way he played and things like that, but actually, as a character, as a personality, as a really driven individual, he drove up standards around him, and he made sure people didn't lapse. He didn't like it when people kind of fell below certain standards. And he was very vocal about that as well, to coaching staff as well. And I just get the feeling that side of things, there's a little similarity there in Conor Gallagher, and I'm hoping he brings that with him. I think in terms of the way they play and everything, he's different. He is a different kind of midfielder, because I think if people are expecting like a bog standard, like holding midfield, or even a bog standard box to box midfielder, he's not really like that, Conor Gallagher. He is comfortable at both ends of the pitch. He's a bit of an all-rounder. Like I said, ferocious energy levels, and he'll win the ball back high up the pitch for you with his pressing as well. But he creates a lot of openings for others. You'll have seen the stat doing the rounds, and it's a good one to use. But in the 23-24 season, that one we were talking about with Chelsea and Pochettino, he created 53 chances for his teammates. That's the 10th highest number among midfielders in the Premier League of that season. And a lot of the players above him, I had a little look, they're all playmakers. They are people like Madders and Bruno Fernandes, players like that. So for him being a different kind of midfielder, that's quite an impressive number. And I think in a system like Thomas Frank that really relies on high aggressive pressing, which we love to see. Don't we? We do. I've said it myself. Used to say it about Poch. I remember the exact phrase I would always use about Pochettino's Tottenham. The best version of Pochettino's Tottenham is the snarling, aggressive, pressing kind. And it was, because you win the ball up the pitch, the opposition's scared the life out of you, especially if you're at home and you're coming out the traps flying at them like that. You win the ball back, you're more likely to score because they are not expecting it. Someone like Gallagher is going to do that. And like I said, his goal involvements, you stand him up against the rest of the Spurs midfield, and it's night and day. He's got 68 goal involvements, direct ones, so that's either goals or assists, in 289 games, which is it's kind of reasonable, more than reasonable, I'd say, for a player in his position, this kind of number 8 role, rather than... Look, there's going to be some very different players in those roles, like someone like a Lampard or a Gerrard is going to score a fair whack of goals, and Dele could probably put into that, although Dele sometimes was playing almost as a 10. But if we're talking about him coming into the Bentancur spot, so we look at that, or certainly as one of the 8s, put that into context. Bentancur, so don't forget, Conor Gallagher, 68 from 289 games, goal involvements. Bentancur, 44 goal involvements from 388 matches, so almost 100 more, 99 more games, but 24 less goal involvement. João Paulinho, let's keep going down, 35 in 373, nowhere near 68. Almost, half of that. Yves Bissouma, I know he's out of favour. 17 goal involvements in 279 games. You could take the young ones. Who used to say that, the youngers? Was it Nuno or Mourinho? Oh, it might have even been Poch. I don't know. Someone used to call them the youngers. Sarr, Gray and Bergvall, between them, have 58 goal involvement. So even between them, they haven't reached 68. And actually half of those almost, or certainly a big chunk of them, come from Bergvall's time in like the Swedish, various divisions of Swedish football, and the FA Cup, the Swedish Cup as well, where I think there was, he bagged I think he scored maybe a hat-trick or 4 goals in a game against a lower league side. So yeah, certainly Gallagher brings you a step up in terms of a goal-scoring midfielder. Everyone that covered his season at Palace said that they were kind of struggling a little bit that season, but he, as a midfielder, created so many openings and opportunities for his teammates, and he was almost played as a bit of more of a number 10 that year as well. So yeah, he said himself, I think, that he likes to play a little bit further up the pitch if he can, but he can play deeper, but he's more comfortable playing kind of pushing on and really facing the opposition goal. So yeah, so he's going to bring all that to it. And also, I don't think we should forget that he's not coming in to be the playmaker. He's coming in to add more oomph and drive and also goal scoring from the midfield and creating kind of a foundation there for someone like Xavi, for Kulusevski when he comes back, for Maddison when he comes back later in the season, if not next. And actually, I've got a quote from him, I think, from 2022, where Gallagher said, "I feel like runs into the box I'm good at. I can win the ball back well and press well. I like to score goals. I want to score more. I can be more aware on the ball in deeper areas and have a better vision sometimes. There's loads of things. I could go on for ages, but I'm determined to work hard and improve as a footballer still." So that was 3.5 years ago, so he will be a better all-round footballer. And I'd also think time in Spain, playing for someone like Simeone, is probably going to flesh you out as a player as well. Another thing about him that is also a good thing, and I know it's kind of knocked down a little bit and lesser thought of, he's homegrown. He is homegrown. It's not that important to the outside world, but Spurs do need to start replenishing their homegrown numbers. You know, we know about the Champions League squad issues, which I will touch upon later. Sorry, we've got to. Lack of club-trained players, but there's also a falling number of association-trained players as well in Europe. So he kind of keeps that going. They've lost Brennan Johnson. There could be more going. But you've also in the Premier League got to have a minimum of 8 currently homegrown players. That is just bog standard homegrown players. Spurs actually only got 6 of those with Brennan Johnson going. And potentially you could lose Ben Davies in the summer, or maybe even in this month if he decides it's time to go out to a new challenge. So I think bringing in a new senior homegrown player is no bad thing in that respect as well. And look, it's nice to have England players as well. You know, we're a club that kind of loves the fact that we've got so many players of different kind of nationalities and everything. But it is cool to see, you know, in your home nation having England players. And And he'll want to get. He hasn't been in Thomas Tuchel's thoughts. He was in all the recent previous managers, Gareth Southgate, but he hasn't been in Tuchel's thoughts. So he'll want to get into that thinking, maybe out of sight, out of mind a little bit when you're in Spain and back in the Premier League, and try and get into Tuchel's thinking. Maybe Solanke does as well as he starts to get games now, and obviously Jed Spence want to keep his spot. So potentially, maybe you could have 3 or so in there. And yeah. Next reason for signing him, I'm a little bit wary of saying. I'm a bit scared. You'll know why. Because it's injuries. The fates will probably decide that within minutes of walking through, he will stub his toe on some kind of door in Hotspur Way. And by the way, Hotspur Way he knows very well because England training there a lot. So he actually knows the training ground very well. But yeah, the fates may well decide, yeah, we're going to get him. Don't worry. He's at Tottenham. We're going to get him. But he's got an amazing injury record. Probably the most amazing injury record I've ever seen. Because if you look on Transfer Market under Conor Gallagher's stats, there is not a single injury recorded his entire senior career. I've never seen that. I don't think ever. The only recorded absence during his entire senior time as a player was 5 days missed because of illness in March 24. It's mad. I'm hoping Dr. Tottenham doesn't see him now. Because we know that they are a club that take players that have got a good injury record and ruin them. I mean, Solanke, I think he hadn't had an injury at Bournemouth. I think he's only missed 3 matches since early 2021. Comes to Spurs and like, we will wreck you. Yeah, I don't know why I went with the Queen song there, but it suddenly popped into my head as I was saying it. Someone had told me that Kolo Muani had barely had any injuries as well before he came to Spurs and got that dead leg that kept him out for ages. But look, let's try to stay positive here. Perhaps he will follow in the footsteps of Pedro Porro. Pedro Porro, at this point, that's a word, that's a cardboard count, I think. Pedro Porro has only missed 3 games since arriving at the club 3 years ago. 2 matches actually since he arrived. So fingers crossed. And I can't. It's not me jinxing this. It would be Tottenham. So don't blame me if anything happens. And finally, he just ticks the box as we've been speaking about. Thomas Frank saying of signing players that are the short-term and the long-term solution because kind of 26 next month, hasn't even hit his prime really. So hopefully we get the best version of Conor Gallagher at Tottenham. And feels like a club that he's been keen to come to for a little while and a club that was keen to take him for a while as well. Atletico Madrid English account has just tweeted, take care of him at Spurs official. That's very nice. Often players can go on from another club and get kind of quite a lot of love from the club and the fans, especially when they've only been there 18 months, but it showed that he made an impact, which is, quite a cool thing. So what else are we going to talk about Gallagher? Being a leading voice in the dressing room, I think is going to be quite an important thing. He's going to set the tempo of the team's players well. Key thing, can he play at the weekend? Well, yes, because he got confirmed and all done way before Friday midday schedule. And sorry, I've got my daughter messaging while I'm doing a video, even though she knows I'm doing a video, the older one. Where was I? Yeah, he had to be announced, confirmed by Friday afternoon at midday. He's well in advance of that, and he actually said in an interview video that he is fit and ready to. He is fit at that point when he recorded the video, and ready to play. I think in terms of football played, have I got that here on my laptop? Let's have a little look. I'm sure I've got a Conor Gallagher thing open here. Yes, I do. Just checking how much he's played in the last month. I feel like it wasn't too much in terms of minutes. They had a little winter break, didn't they? He played 45 minutes on the 4th of January, 49 minutes on the 21st. Pretty much, like I say, every game seems to kind of either come on at half-time or go off at half-time in recent games. I think Simeone is quite tactical, isn't he, and makes a lot of changes. His last 90 minutes was end of November, but there's quite a bit of minutes he's played. and Champions League as well. He's been playing in. Yeah, I would say looking at that, that's a player that's probably okay to start, but we'll see. I'd be surprised if Thomas Frank doesn't bring him straight into the starting lineup just to give everyone a lift, and even if he only plays 60 minutes. And please don't injure him. So that was that. I don't think there was anything else I needed to say about Gallagher really in terms of that. One thing we do have to talk about is some transfer stuff. Don't worry, we're going to talk about loads more about potential transfers, what's next and everything. This might be a bit of a longer video, so I apologise, but I've got loads to get through. Fabio Paratici, we've had official confirmation today that he will be heading out the door after this window closes, heading off as we suspected, and it's kind of been this open secret, not secret, but just open news. He was going to head back to Italy and go to Fiorentina. So that's been confirmed, and Vinay Venkatesham said, "We have agreed that Fabio will return to Italy following the conclusion of the January transfer window in line with his wish to move back home. We thank Fabio for his contribution to the club and wish him well for the future. Our management structure is designed to be resilient to personnel changes, and it will be business as usual moving forward." Paratici himself said, "I want to thank Vinay and the board of Tottenham Hotspur for accommodating my desire to return to Italy and join Fiorentina. I have loved my time at the club. However, this opportunity, together with the need to be based in my homeland, has led me to this decision. Spurs is a club that is very close to my heart. It is great people working for it who are as passionate about the project as I am and want to bring sustained success. I have no doubt that they will achieve that, and I'll be watching closely from Italy." So yes, I mean, all we kind of know about this officially, or certainly not officially, but unofficially, however you want to say it, is it's personal reasons is kind of what's being stated for him going back, just needing to be back in Italy. From what I understand, Spurs have been making some inquiries about a replacement for Paratici. Remember I said before that Vinay Venkatesham likes to surround himself with experts in all the different fields he needs, and I think they probably won't want to just have one football-y person at the kind of in the hierarchy of the club, and Johan Langer. And I think, especially as they've kind of lost Levy and Paratici, haven't they, as people that are used to dealing and negotiating with clubs, agents, boardrooms, whatever you want to call it. I think it's a lot in the modern game to put on the shoulders of one person in Johan Langer. And it is quite a broad role right now, even with the new head of football operations coming in, which is widely reported to be Rafi Mawson from the City Group, who will kind of take on more of the admin side of things and stuff like that. But I was trying to think of, like, when you look at potential names really in the frame for who might come in. I mean, I do wonder if they look at a name from the past in Paul Mitchell. Maybe he'll be inclined to come back to Spurs now there's kind of new people at the helm. Worked with Pochettino for 3 years, didn't he, at Spurs before wanting to leave the club. He was placed on gardening leave by Daniel Levy. I remember having to ask Poch about that in a press conference way back. Was it 2018, 2017? Way back. And you could see how not happy, I think, Pochettino was that he was losing this guy that kind of been with him at MK Dons as well. And he's gone on since to be at, what's he done? Leipzig. He's been at Monaco, I think, as well. Newcastle as well. He just recently left there. So it'd be interesting to see whether he's a name they turn to. The other one, I wonder, look, it might not be someone that they turn to, but you never know. I don't think it would be very popular, but there was a part of me that wonders, would they look at Edu? You know, is it Edu Gasper, his full name? Because don't forget, Venkatesham and Edu worked as a partnership at that lot down the road that way. And they kind of started to put that lot down the road back to where they are now. I think it would be a tough sell to the Spurs fans, because I think it would be seen as very much like all these people from Arsenal they're infiltrating Tottenham. They're trying to make us another Tottenham. I mean, he's technically been at Forest in the meantime. He's actually under a bit of fire there at the moment, isn't he? Because things are not going so well at Forest. But and I think there was some suggestions in the media anyway that maybe he and Nuno hadn't seen eye to eye, which is why it all led to everything that's happened there recently with Postecoglou and Dyche, and nothing really changing at all in the kind of downward trend Did I say Pochettino or say Postecoglou? I can't remember now. Postecoglou and Dyche if I didn't. But I do think it would be a tough sell. Let me know what you're thinking about him. I can't see that being a popular one to go with the fans. I think Paul Mitchell would probably be taken back better because he harks back to better times, I guess, the Pochettino era, and he obviously brought in some good kind of young players during that time as well. But look, there's lots of other sporting directors they may look to, and who knows, they might kind of try and get through to the summer with Johan Lange because, you know, Paratici is going to be there for this window, then maybe they get someone in ahead of the summer and the transfer window then. But Paratici does still have that work to do. You know, next couple of weeks he's got to work for Tottenham. He's got to sort out some stuff for Tottenham. I do wonder if he's going to be able to not look at Fiorentina and go, I've kind of got to help them too, because if they go down, I'm stuffed, kind of thing. So I do wonder whether we suddenly see Fiorentina doing a lot of deals, or maybe Spurs players being convinced to go to Fiorentina. I don't know. Although I don't think they can afford to lose many players now. We'll see. And he will head off, Paratici, after giving us the delights of Brian Hill, Pierluigi Gallina. Was it Pierluigi Gallina? I can't remember his full name now. Gallini, anyway. Gallina, I was calling the referee, wasn't I? Gallini, Emerson Royale, Nuno. Remember being told about his showing Daniel Levy videos of Nuno as the Valencia coach, convincing him he was an attacking manager. Look, I'm being a bit harsh, and of course he's brought in some very good players from his old club, from Juventus, from Serie A. I think few people know Serie A players as well as Fabio Paratici, and there's been a couple of other, obviously Pat Matasara as well. I think mostly Spurs will miss his ability to connect with people in boardrooms as well as agents, you know, and the super agents. I think he was very close to as well. So they'll definitely miss that aspect to him. He's very well connected, I think, is how Venkatesham described him in his when he was unveiled in his new role. Was it even 3 months ago now? It's ridiculous. Yeah, so they'll miss that aspect to him, definitely. I do think there would have been a little bit of a clash in the way he and Lange worked, in terms of Lange being very data-led and Fabio Paratici not really being that kind of guy, from everything that people have told me about him. So I can't see how there wasn't sometimes disagreements. But look, everything's aligned, as we keep getting told, even though one of them's leaving. So yeah, Fabio Paratici in his final weeks at the club. What else we had? Spurs and Villa have both been charged by the FA with misconduct after the cup match. The statement said, it is alleged that both clubs failed to ensure their players and or officials did not behave in an improper and or provocative way after the final whistle. Aston Villa and Tottenham Hotspur have until Friday 16th of January to provide a response. I'm hoping that means they're not going to go after individuals, and we're going to get someone like, like Paulinho getting any extra. We'll see. I hope not. Back to transfers though. I digress slightly. Sousa up next. I'm just double checking and nothing's come through on that. Sousa will be joining for £13 million from Santos, the 19-year-old left back. He was expected to land in the UK from Brazil. I think it was this afternoon. So it was anticipated he was going to do certainly all, if not a large chunk of his medical this afternoon and tonight, tying up the deal. Whether that gets announced late tonight or tomorrow, we'll see. My gut tells me maybe it would be tomorrow, and you'd have today as Conor Gallagher Day, but you never know. Maybe if they get everything done, they think, well, let's put it in the kind of the wake of this joy, as it were. I don't know. So joy, I don't know. I haven't really looked at the kind of the comments since he signed. Don't know. Not that should really matter, but there you go. I suppose I can't really say that if I've just spoken about Atletico Madrid fans saying how nice things about him. I guess it has to go both ways. But okay, if you're wondering, I touched on it earlier, about what these two deals, Sousa and Gallagher, would do to the Premier League and Champions League squads, well, okay, I'll try and do this as quickly as possible, because I know some people just like their eyes like glaze over because it is complicated stuff. But I'm going to try to make it really simple, and I'm not going to go into it too much in the jargon. Sousa, let's start with the Premier League squad. Sousa fits very nicely into that because he is under 21, and the beauty of the Premier League rules, he just goes into the under 21 list. Yay! Nothing to do with the 25-man list, no problems there. And if you're wondering about the under 21 list, you've got to be born on or after January 1st, 2004. So Sousa will go in there with Mason Melia, Archie Gray. We'll talk about Melia later. Actually, I need to double check that. Someone told me the correct way to say it. 1 second. I want to make sure I've got this right. It is Melia. Sorry, I knew I'd get it wrong. Melia. Mason Melia. Oh, I've got to remember that. Right, Melia. Okay. Aston Villa fans not happy, I think. What a shocker. Mason Melia, Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, Wilson Odegaard, Matisse Tell, all on that list among others. That also means Spurs have one spot free, because Sousa doesn't count, in the non-homegrown player list. They would have they got 16 rather than the maximum 17 you're allowed on that. I would say that list also includes Yves Bissouma, who the club would like to move on, and players like Bentancur and Kudus, who are going to be out till April. So you could technically bring in another foreign player in terms of the Premier League squad and be absolutely fine. 2 potentially if you were going to bomb Bissouma out somewhere or sell him. Gallagher will replace Brennan Johnson in the homegrown list. Spurs will have, I think, 7 in that list. Let me just check the numbers. Yeah, 7 in the because in the Premier League, Kevin Danso counts as homegrown because of his kind of the academy teams he was at there. So that's that. Premier League is good. Don't worry about Premier League. All fine. Champions League, Champions League is still an absolute chaotic nightmare. It is a horrendous mess, as you'll know. It hasn't changed at all with these new signings because essentially they've just come in and replaced other people in terms of the overall squad. So Gallagher replaces Brennan Johnson and Takai. Sousa replaces Takai right now. Takai obviously out on loan at Borussia Mönchengladbach. I think the main problem, if you're not aware of the differences between the two, is that in the European squads, young players don't have their own separate list unless they've been at the club. I think it's for 3 years. So any new signing like Sousa does not go on a youth list. He has to get lumped into the main bunch, which is of no help whatsoever. And also the homegrown list has 2 different categories, association trained and club trained. And you've got to have 4 of each, which you can put into little specialised categories. Spurs in the club trained just have the 1, and that is Brandon Austin. Yes, they've got other younger players, but in terms of senior players, Brandon Austin. And if you cannot fill your 4 spots, you must leave 3 of them free if you've only got 1. So essentially, Spurs' 25-man squad shrinks to 22. So what's the easiest way to say this, really, is that Spurs have 21 players to fit into 17 non-locally trained spots and 6 association-trained players to fit into 4. So probably just look at that as a bulk is the easiest way. 27 players to fit into 21 spots if we're keeping Brandon Austin aside. So still 6 players have to be left out. It's as simple as that. That's where we're at right now before anyone else is coming through the door. Matisse Tell obviously has just replaced Dominic Solanke in the Champions League squad. But Dominic Solanke must return. As soon as he's fit, he can return to the squad. I've had some people saying, well, surely you could bring in Sousa and Gallagher for Kudus and Bentancur. Unfortunately, you cannot because of 2 reasons. First off, you can only do that injury change rule up until the 6th game. That's passed. That was the Slavia game. Secondly, the player has to have been injured for 60 days. It's not he will be injured for 60 days. He has to have been. So Solanke, by that point, had reached the 60-day mark. They were able to replace him. Bentancur and Kudus is only recent. So we've got to wait. They can come into the team if you were to choose to. The squad, ahead of the knockout rounds, if Spurs get to that phase, they've got to submit their list by 11 p.m. on February the 5th. You can add, I think it's up to 3 players in. But, of course, like I said, Spurs still have to leave 6 out. So if you're bringing Gallagher in, which we presume he will, someone's got to come out of that squad. It could be that he takes out Bentancur or Kudus because they're not going to be around until the final weeks of the season. Probably would make sense, really, maybe Bentancur. And you can also put in players that have previously played in European competition, even if it's the same one. And Gallagher, I think, has played all 6 Champions League games so far for Atletico Madrid. He can come in and play for Spurs. It was changing the rule a few years back. So that's it. So he's got to leave out 6. We shall see who he leaves out. Will people like Dragoshin stay out if he doesn't leave? Basuma, you would think, stays out. Kulusevski will be back. Do you bring Kulusevski back in? It's a difficult one. You know, by February, you'd hope he might be getting nearer to being back involved in stuff. That's a big call to leave Kulusevski out, who could be a key player again. We'll see. We'll see. So I'll leave that to you. Let me know the 6 that should be left out at this current time in the comments. I'll be very interested to see what people think. I cannot believe we've spoken about 40 minutes and we've still got loads more to go. So I'm going to rattle through this. Let's go through what potentially next. Let's go through the entire squad, what's needed, what might happen. Goalkeepers. Let's go with the back. I think this will be a category that maybe the change comes in the summer. Never know, but I feel like the summer is more likely when they'll look at the long-term makeup of this group of goalkeepers and decide whether that's the group they want going forward. Vicario has been linked with a return to Italy. Inter Milan especially been quite interested in him. Obviously has a bit of a on-off relationship with the Tottenham fans, it's probably fair to say, and getting booed and things like that. Kinski's been linked with a loan move pretty much since he walked through the door. He was touted originally as someone to push Vicario for his spot, but I kind of feel like every time he's come in, apart from the early games, he hasn't really screamed, pick me now. He hasn't really made his case. I know it's difficult when you come in, especially as a goalkeeper, I think, without any rhythm to your play whatsoever. But this season, I think it was in the summer, I asked, or someone asked about Kinski maybe going out on loan, and Thomas Frank said, no, he's got a great career ahead of him at Tottenham. But actually, since that point, he's only played 2 Carabao Cup games. Spurs out of that, Spurs out of the FA Cup. Opportunities for him are very much going to be dependent on Vicario getting injured or not, like he did last season, or just completely dropping out of form. But will they let him go? It's a tough one. From what I understand at this point in time, Spurs are kind of doing a bit of a blanket rule of, because of the lack of numbers, no first-team players are allowed to head out on loan. But I just wonder whether that stance softens over the next couple of weeks if things start to move. With Kinski, you know, there is interest in, I think, West Ham, Besiktas, teams like that. I think there's quite a few clubs that have been interested in taking him. I don't know whether they consider selling him. You know, I say on loan, maybe if someone comes in with a bid or obligation to buy on a loan, I don't know. If they do accept a bid, they're kind of admitting that they don't think he's good enough, I suppose. But it's a shame, because I think he's really good with his feet, and I think he's good with his hands in some situation. I don't think he's as good a shot stopper at this point in time as Vicario, but I do think, obviously, he's a very young goalkeeper. He's 22. He's got a hell of a lot of developing growing to do. My issue really, though, is if he goes, your cover is Brandon Austin, who's played a handful of games, and Luca Gunter's probably the next on the kind of in the hot seat or in the hot gloves, whatever you want to call it. I think you'd have to bring in experienced cover, and then that would be someone that'd only be on a short-term basis. So I don't know if that really helps you. I wonder if that is just an area you look at in the summer. Fullbacks, feels like that's kind of now nicely balanced. Sousa coming in as another left-back with Destiny Udogie. You've also got Ben Davies can play there too, and that allows Jed Spence really to head over back to the right-hand side and compete with Pedro Porro. And then you've got Archie Gray that kind of at a push can fill in at both sides as well. So I kind of feel like fullbacks at this point in time are in a decent spot, and then you look at that again in the summer. Centre-backs, we spoke briefly about Radu Dragoshin. I do feel for him with the cup competitions kind of being exited, because it's very difficult for him to get game time now unless there are injuries. I think I said it in the last video or not, whether we got to that point in time or not, but Spurs had rejected a loan bid from Roma for him. And like I said, they're kind of keeping his stance at this moment in time that they're not allowing players to go out on loan. Leipzig apparently interested in him as well, Dragoshin. But he is at the moment Romero, Van der Ven, Danso ahead of him in the pecking order. His agent Dragoshin, Florin Manea, who is he likes to chat. He likes to chat without a hint of irony. told the Italian media, the decisive days will be between today and tomorrow. I'd like to avoid talking, but we hope to reach a conclusion in the negotiations with Roma. So no conclusion at this point in time, as of recording this. Like I said, Spurs kind of putting the message out there. They're not looking to loan out players because it would be I think it's a bit mad. I know Dragic needs to play, but for me, I would keep that centre-back group until the summer. I just would. Because let's say, for instance, you let Dragic go out. I feel like you end up with a Johnson situation in terms of, let's say, Romero gets suspended and then one of the other players gets injured. Van der Ven or Danso. And you're left with the third remaining centre-back playing with Ben Davies. That was not going to be the point. He wasn't meant to be playing centre-back this season. Or Archie Gray has to come away from his development as a midfielder and become a centre-back. I still think Archie Gray is going to get a lot of midfield minutes in the kind of months ahead. I don't think Conor Gallagher is going to shut down his game time. I think it'll just go back to how it was with Bentancur. He's kind of coming in and out, maybe alongside him at times as well. So I don't think he's going to be harmed, I think, long-term wise. Don't forget, João Palhinha is on loan. They've still got to decide whether they're going to take that. But I just feel like with the centre-backs, I'd be really... Not that it matters what I think, but I really wouldn't be delighted if Dragic goes and... Because I did say, didn't I, in the list of players that they were looking at, that centre-back was one if centre-back left. I just kind of feel like Spurs, every year, calendar year, feel they need to buy a centre-back. And the problem with that is... Let's say Dragic goes and they bring in another centre-back. Then what about Kota Takai when he comes back? What does he even think he's got a chance of kind of getting into the team? What about Luka Vuskovic? What about Janai Byfield, Malachi Hardy coming through the academy? Where is the pathway for any of these players if you keep buying centre-backs? Vuskovic, he's doing brilliantly with Hamburg. I think they've had a fan vote where the Bundesliga fans have just voted him player of the season so far. He's got stuff he needs to work on. Of course he does. And he knows it. That's a great thing. It's working with a trainer to work on his acceleration, his anticipation, and kind of the two areas of his game that he knows as an 18-year-old he's still got to work on, and especially with the Premier League pace. But he'll get there. He's a terrific young player as well. So do you really want to block those players? You've also got Alfie Dorrington, who's been recalled from his loan at Aberdeen, and clubs in Championship, League One looking at him. So he'll head off. James Rousewell is another player I really like. Big centre-back in the academy who, I think he's 19 now. He's been on the first team bench 3 times this season. He could really do with a loan move too. But all of these players, they just kind of can shelve any hopes of playing for the first team. You're just going to keep bringing in new faces. So I would like to see the defenders stay the same. But let me know in the comments if you disagree. You may well do. You may... Look, if an amazing defender... let's say if Mark Gahey, and I'm not saying this is happening, because there are other bigger clubs right now, far more currently successful clubs than Tottenham want Mark Gahey. But let's say, for instance, if a player like Mark Gahey becomes available, I get it. I get it if you were able to move and able to come. I get it. It's kind of sometimes you've just got to do these things. But I'd love to see some of these young players come through. Let's dive into the midfield. So midfield, brilliant addition today. Conor Gallagher, really think he's going to be terrific. I think Spurs fans are going to take to him quite quickly. I hope so. Because, yeah, Spurs fans, we do kind of chew them up and spit them out a little bit sometimes, players. But I think he's going to win a lot of people over quite quickly. He also did a photo with a dog, I noticed, as one of his early gallery of pictures. It was his own dog who happened to be there for the day. But yeah, so got him. Lucas Bergvall, of course. Lucas Bergvall went off with that. Looked like a recurrence of a muscle injury, although the way I'm massively reading too much into it, and we'll find out tomorrow, but it just felt like the way he spoke about Bergvall compared to Bentancur didn't seem like a similarly serious thing, but we'll find out tomorrow at the press conference, which is bewilderingly at 4:00. It's a late one. So right now, Gallagher will join Archie Gray and Palhinha as the only fit central midfielders. You've got Yves Bissouma's probably should be back by now, and we'll soon find out whether he's in favour in any way, whether he's allowed to play with the team, or they just go, please Yves, just go. Obviously out of contract in the summer as well. I think there's some suggestion there's an option to extend that. I think they would be mad to do that, because I feel like they'll get themselves in a situation where that's great, but no one wants to pay the wages maybe that he has while also paying a fee. I think you're better off just kind of letting him go at this point. It will be another player that Spurs have written off a fee for, but I don't know. I think if you just get him out the door this winter, he's just not going to be a Spurs player for the long term. And Pat Matsar, who is playing his game tonight, I think, in the Africa Cup of Nations. So I think it's against Egypt. So hopefully he can go through and have a little bit longer there. But he obviously is still to come back. And then we've got Madders to come back later in the season. Did his little Rafa van der Vaart video, didn't he? That was the other thing I was going to say about Conor Gallagher in the little video interview. He did speak about that phone call with Thomas Frank and said it was a really good chat, and he explained exactly how he was going to be kind of a key part of this team. So that was cool. In terms of looking at other midfielders, obviously Spurs had an interest in Lucas Paqueta. We've known about that for a while. West Ham midfielder, that was the same last summer. I think he's desperate to go home, isn't he, to Brazil and back to Flamengo. So Flamengo, I think, also want to take Richarlison potentially at some point, maybe in the summer. So keep an eye on that one. That's been a long rumbling thing as well. In terms of younger ones, George Abbott's back at the club. He's trying to get his fitness back up after that serious injury, and then they're kind of going to work out what happens to him next. I think it was a quad injury he had. It was a really bad one. Alfie Devine, absolutely loving life at Preston North End. He's doing really, really well there. They've got an option to sign him permanently, but actually there's also been quite a lot of interest, from what I understand, in Premier League clubs and other Championship teams in taking him, 21 years old, either permanently on loan. So shall see what happens there. But yeah, he's having a brilliant time. Development's been fantastic. Tyrese Hall doing really well at Notts County. Current plan appears at this point seems to be for him to remain there unless there's an offer that's too tempting to turn down. But, if you're doing really well, just keep going kind of thing. It's his first loan move. I'd like to see a first loan move for Callum Olasese as well. Impressive for 21. Has been Thomas Frank's bench 5 times this season. I think at some point in 2026 we'll see Callum go out on loan, and I think he'll do really well. Let's shift into the attack. You can see I'm speaking very quickly because I'm very wary of making this too long a video. Obviously, Spurs had gone into this window looking for a left winger, then sold Brennan Johnson off the right while losing Mohamed Kudus until April. Now they're on short on the right wing. You could actually say that they're kind of like putting square pegs into round holes on the right, whereas on the left, at least they had to kind of younger players that fit there, like Tell and Odebear. It makes it very difficult for Matisse Tell to head out on loan. I know there's been talk about him, and I think Paris FC are one of the ones that are looking at him. I think he's going to play quite a lot of football in the weeks ahead as well. I think this actually could be maybe a little bit of a making of Matisse moment for him. If he can grab it, and he kind of has thus far, I think he's been really good. We'll see. But like I said, I think that would be utterly crazy to let him get out on loan. I think I asked the other day, didn't I, of Thomas Frank, and he was like, he's needed. He's going to play games. So hopefully this is a turning point for him. Like I said, Solanke kind of has to come back for him in the Champions League squad. So I think Tell has to come back out of that. Odebear filled in on the right, didn't he, against Villa? And I think maybe that's going to be something we'll see a bit more of, especially as if Richarlison's not fit because of his hamstring problem, then Callum Moani presumably has to play up front for now until Solanke's able to start, which you'd think would be a couple of weeks maybe. A key one is Kulusevski. Obviously, we're waiting for him to come back. The patella injury that Thomas Frank said is like one of the kind of you haven't seen much in the history of football, which is never a good thing. But when he does come back, I think it's 3 to 4 weeks, isn't it, with the injection, see whether that's settled the pain down, and then potentially they're getting back out on the grass. And if he comes back, you've got someone on that right, you've got someone that can play in the centre. Suddenly it unlocks loads because you've got another person with Xavi that can be a playmaker. And then it comes down to who Spurs can bring in. We know they want lots of kind of young, exciting talents around the game, but it's who they can get because Savinho's injured, the main one they wanted. Do they wait until the summer and try and go again for him? Yan Diomande, we've spoken about him before. Every club, pretty much elite club, wants him right now. Spurs are not surely going to be uppermost in his thoughts, the 14th place team in the Premier League. He's a massive Liverpool fan as well. He did a TikTok live stream where he was telling everyone that his dream is to sign for Liverpool one day because he and his dad wants that to happen. So probably not sitting there thinking, Spurs, that seems like a good one. Especially the way they are right now. And I don't think Leipzig want to sell him right now anyway. I think they're waiting to summer to get a massive auction going for him. There's Magnus Akliush, I can't speak today, who we all saw destroy Spurs in the Champions League, yet somehow not managed to score a goal in that game, in the 0-0 draw. Mainly plays on the right, but can also play through the centre as well. Just as good, really, in either role. I understand that Monaco are looking at potential replacements for him in case they do lose him either this month or the summer. I think it would be great, but again, I think there'll be a queue of clubs looking to sign him. And from what I understand, he was an alternate option to Xavi in the summer. So it maybe would be a bit of a surprise if they were to then turn to another option when they've signed Xavi. But we'll see. We'll see. But that kind of, for me, it seems a little bit unlikely unless they just see him as a right-sided player. But then I guess it starts... it's difficult, isn't it? Because you've got these players out injured. They need players for the now, but then you could bring in Akliush, I guess, for the now, and you think he'd be brilliant. And I think he's such an exciting player. But then in the summer, you've suddenly got on the right then Akliush, Kulusevski, and other players that can also play there in that team. And through the middle, as playmakers, you've got Xavi, Kulusevski, Maddison, and Akliush. It suddenly becomes a little bit like there's too many kind of people for certain roles. But I really like it. I really like Akliush. I think it'd be terrific. And then, there's loads of others that we spoke about before that are probably unlikely. Yildiz, Juventus, who anyone in the game would want right now, probably going to sign a new contract there. Porto's young striker, Samu Aguiroa, who I think he's got a million goals this season. He's doing really well. He's only 21, but everyone looking at him. I had some little whispers I'd heard of inquiries made about the Cruzeiro striker, Kyle Jorge, I think it is, who's with the same agency as Sousa. But after digging into that, I'm told there's no interest there from Tottenham in him. I think West Ham are interested in him. So whether it's one of those where there's maybe a little bit of interest being pushed around, but actually it's just to try and get West Ham to bid a bit more, I don't know. But certainly doesn't look like a player that Spurs are going to try and pursue. I think he was at Juventus, wasn't he? It didn't really work out for him there. He kind of went back to Brazilian football. And and I mean, in terms of the other attackers, Colomwani, I don't know if he'll have his kind of loan made permanent. He hasn't really done anything yet, but there's enough of the season left to go. As I did with the other departments, youth players, Will Lancashire doing brilliantly at Oxford in a struggling team, really developing well. Spurs are so happy with him that, from what I understand, they've knocked back a couple of bids that came in for him in the last week or two. Because they feel he's taken a big leap in his development. They kind of want to see him in the summer and see where he's at. Now been joined by Jamie Donnelly, who I think got a whack to the head and concussion. I can't remember. I didn't kind of chase it up. On his debut, it's a shame because he'll be brilliant for Will. You know, he knows his game inside out. He'll be able to look for his runs all the time. Oxford, I think we said this before, have got an option for Jamie. It's about £4.5 to £5 million, which it's deemed unlikely that they'll take up, especially if they go down. Talking of players that, you don't want to push out of the pathways, Mikey Moore. Mikey Moore's doing brilliantly at Rangers now, really reveling in a club where there's massive pressure on every game, huge attention and scrutiny. It's a great move for him now. It looked like it was going sideways under, was it Russell Martin to begin with? And now under Danny Rowe, he's flying. It's brilliant. Old Firm derby goal, wonderful. So don't forget about Mikey coming back and being a potential winger as well. We're so conflicted, aren't we? And I absolutely am slap bang in the middle of this, of wanting transfers and wanting young players to come through. But the two don't actually balance very well. You've got to find that exact thing. I mean, a good example of that is Dane Scarlett. Dane Scarlett's just never really been able to break through at Spurs. And I understand there's League One clubs that are looking at maybe trying to get him for the second half of the season. And I think 21 years old, he's nearing that point in his Spurs career now where it's a bit like, does he probably have to move away? Unfortunately, I think he does. I think he has to do something like a Troy Parrott. Troy Parrott went away and absolutely is smashing it out in the Netherlands. And he could be similar. He could go somewhere else, get a fresh start and kick on, really. It's a shame because he's got such huge potential and people would big him up so much. Mourinho loved him, but it just hasn't happened for young Dane. came on the other day, actually, I think I said this, and I kind of felt, unfortunately, and it wasn't his fault. I think it was the way the system then changed. But he came on for Tell, and I felt from that point on, the Spurs didn't look like they want to score. It didn't work playing him behind Kolo Muani. Just didn't work at all. Who others? Others, just before I go. Damola Ajayi, he's back from Doncaster Rovers. They're looking for a loan move for him. Oliver Iro's headed off to Mansfield Town, his first loan, League One. What is this? They have. It's just been pointed out to me that Fiorentina have done their announcement about Fabio Paratici, and they've just nicked Spurs' picture of Paratici from their website and used it, which is quite weird. Talking of other young players we want to see come through in the remaining months of the season, Luca Williams-Barnett, of course. I'd love to see Tin and Thompson get some minutes. I know they're both 17, but both have kind of been involved in first-team training at points, and they got goals in those boots. That'd be brilliant if they could get a chance. Mason Melia. I said I would come back to him. So a lot of people have been asking, where is he? What's he doing? Why is he not shown in any pictures yet? For what I understand, came in with a little minor back issue that he'd been playing with for the last couple of months at St Patrick's Athletic. And nothing. The words used are very, very minor back issue. I think they're just making sure that is completely gone. The logic is, don't come in here and try and impress, do your best, strain yourself when you've already got a back issue. Just come in, be careful, and then we'll let you hit the ground running when that's completely gone and you're not feeling anything in it, which is the right way to do it for an 18-year-old. Don't wreck him before he's even started, because he's a hell of a talent, 98 senior matches already at 18 years old, played in Europa League, 33 goal involvements in those 98 games as well. And yeah, I think he'll come back. He'll start properly doing training, getting involved. And Thomas Frank will have a look and decide, does he need a bit of time in the under-21s and he comes back to us in the first team? Does he come straight into the first team? Or is it better for him to go straight out on loan and get some first team experience in the English game rather than the Irish game? We'll see. But certainly someone that people think very, very highly of. That's it really. I just thought I'd take a quick whistle-stop tour, and I'm sorry it's over an hour, but I knew I was going to have to pack a load of stuff into this one. Personally, I would like to probably see them bring in another attacker in the coming weeks, while also being very wary that they're going to have to block off other people for the now. If they may not take up Kolo Muani's loan, that could potentially be a thing as well, couldn't it? And just fingers crossed Kulusevski comes back and is able to hit the ground. It's difficult to say hit the ground running because he didn't last time he came back from a bigger injury. But I'd imagine we'll get an out of the blue link in the weeks ahead. Gallagher's kind of one from the past more than a brand new link. I just wonder if we'll see a new one. With Gallagher, it was very much someone they've always liked. And then as soon as Bentancur got his injury, they saw Villa were kind of slightly opening that door. They were like, yep, and barged their way through that door and grabbed him, and they kind of hopefully need to have something set up. Or they put out more Conor Gallagher videos, which I shall watch straight after this. But like I said, 4:00 press conference tomorrow with Thomas Frank, where we'll be able to talk about new signings. Hopefully Sousa will be announced by then as well, and we can ask a little bit about him and get a bit more on kind of exactly how quickly they're going to push him into this, because he hasn't played for almost a month, so I'd imagine take a little while to get him up fitness-wise. But, we'll find out. And we'll see what else is on the cards and whether he feels they're done, which I don't think they are from everything I'm hearing. They've got to give him all the tools to try and turn this around. Otherwise, their own decision to hire him is going to look silly, Tottenham. So I think they kind of have to back him. And then obviously, West Ham at the weekend, massive derby, a struggling West Ham team. They're 18th in the table, Spurs 14th. My goodness, Tottenham have to win this game at home. And hopefully, having a little bit of extra quality and great mentality in Gallagher in the middle, maybe that's a little thing that helps them with, Xavi pulling the strings just ahead. Channel what they were doing in the second half against Villa. And if they could kind of go along those ways with a bit more quality, they should beat a not great West Ham team right now. Obviously, Paqueta wanting to go as well. But if they don't, oh my goodness. I've quite enjoyed doing this video because we haven't been talking about negative stuff. I don't really want to do a negative one. I'd love to do a video late on Saturday night when I get back in, talking about all the happy stuff. That'd be lovely. Please, Tottenham, let me do that. Time to head off. This is a very long video. It's been longest for a little while. Apologies for that, but hopefully there's loads we can have a little chat about in the comments underneath. Please do always read through them. I do. Unlike social media, which is just like, ugh. When it's the comments under here, I always read through everything because it's always really interesting discussion rather than just people being unpleasant, which is very nice. It's a bit of a difference. Right, time to head off. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.